Margot. Sometimes people say when these things happen, it's just one family get affected, but both families get affected. You have children who lost their mom and dad. So just want to extend sympathies to them. We also had a shooting that took place on the River Street area, Washington Block, and one man young lost his life as well. Came on. His surname is not coming. His father was my is my good friend, based in Antigua. So I want to extend sympathies to um, Imon, better known as Shabe, in Antigua, and the passing of his son, who got gunned down. And that's an unfortunate situation. Our young men, we just have to see how we can get our young men to settle the situations, not with guns and knives and hurting each other, killing each other, but at least have discussion, dialogue, constructive dialogues, and see how they can come to amicable solutions instead of taking each other's lives. So I just want to reach out to them, the families, and those of you not feeling too well tonight, just want to reach out to you and your family, and we just play this one for you, just a few bars, and Gracefully Broken by Tasha Cobbs. Yeah.
God will break you to position you, break you to promote you, and break you to put you in your right place. But when he breaks you, he doesn't hurt you. When he breaks you, he doesn't destroy you. He does it with grace. Anybody been gracefully broken? Thank you, Lord. Thank you. So, Father, tonight we're broken before you. Thank you for handling us with grace. Just lift your worship right there in this moment. All I have in these hands and multiply, God, all that I am, and find my heart on the altar again. Set me on fire, set me on fire. Come on, sing. All I have in these hands and multiply, God.
Good night to the multitude of prayer warriors.
On the altar again, set me on fire. Ask him. Set me on fire. Here I am, God, arms wide open. Pouring out my life, gracefully broken.
Yes, Gracefully Broken. Yes, I just want to say good night to each and every one again of you again. Welcome to the Workers' Voice. Don't forget to tell your friends, call a friend, WhatsApp a friend, text a friend. Let them know that the Workers' Voice is on here at Q95. And tonight with me in studios, we have our International Secretary from the Wesley constituency, Dr. McDonald Thomas, better known as TC. TC, welcome.
Good night. Good night. Yes, I want to say good evening to each and everyone. Especially, I'll start with the Wesley constituency. I want to say good evening to all in the Wesley constituency. Special condolences go out to Olivette Paul, and she lost her mom a while back, and we grieve with her. I want to say that ask her to hold strong. That in these times, things are always a little tough, but we always make it through because we have the help of the people around us for the support. I want to say good evening to our supporters there in St. Croix, our St. Croix group, who has been faithful in supporting us in the party. I want to say good evening to you and continue to do so. Good evening to our people in the Wesley constituency. I want to say a special good evening to our candidate for the next election, Mr. Jafar Swar. A lot of people are talking about Ja at this moment. I understand the power is starting to tremble. He's actually moved into the constituency. So that means our candidate is making some impact. So time is short, but I want to just say good evening to each and everyone. Happy to be here after some time and look forward to a good program here this evening.
Thank you very much, TC. Welcome. Good evening to also joining us in studios this evening is Dr. Thompson Fountain, our political leader from the Monjon Grand Fond Foyal Riviera Civic constituency.
Yes, good evening, Spags and Dr. TC. And you can see Spags is familiar with my constituency. Talks about Montreal and Fregat. You know, that's intimately, that knows that area intimately. So let me just say good night to all of those of you that are listening tonight. Of course, to all of you from the constituency, Grand Fond, White City. A very good night to you, as well as Montreal, Montfregat, and Montjean, Riviera Cyric. And to all of you across Dominica, let me say a very special good night. It's a pleasure to be back on your radio, back with you on The Workers' Voice tonight. We have a very interesting program. I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going right into it. I see the phone ring. Let us take a quick phone call there. Let me see what the person want to say to us tonight. Good night. Welcome to The Workers' Voice.
Good night, Star. CC, how we call him?
TC.
Right. There is another death that you did not mention.
Go right ahead.
Louisa Baron, she from the Cry Reserve. She resides in La Plaine.
Okay.
She's the girlfriend of Eiffel Jules.
Oh, okay.
Yes. You know Eiffel Jules?
Yes, we know Eiffel very well. Ron Green,
right.
Main boy.
Right. So he's the girlfriend of Eiffel. She's the girlfriend of Eiffel Jules, and she died on the.
Okay, we'll let's do extend.
You forget this one.
Yes,
now she would be listening to you.
Okay. And I forgot I missed this one. I didn't realize that she passed on. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's Pepsi calling.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to extend sympathies to Eiffel Jules and the rest of the people in La Plaine on the passing of his girlfriend, Louisa. Yes.
Condolences. I actually know her and express sincere condolences to Eiffel and to the family. Yeah, this is sad. I was not aware of it, but we certainly want to extend our condolences.
Yes,
indeed, to the family.
I mean, you seen people today and they're gone tomorrow. You know, so
yes.
All right, but let's get right into it. I've been on the road from morning, so my phone died, and I know we had different areas that we would like to touch tonight. But before we do so, we had an election. There was an election in Trinidad, and Dr. Fountain, and you saw what happened. There's a new, the UNC won the election, a new prime minister elect in Trinidad and Tobago. What is your take on it? Sad. What is your take on it?
Yeah, well, you know, the winds of change, and what struck me about the elections in Trinidad is the willingness of the population to change their leaders when they feel that those leaders are not serving their best interests. And we saw that in Trinidad. After 2 terms, they removed that government of originally of Rowley, who was replaced by Stuart Young, and they replaced them with a government that was there in 2010, a 1-term government, because at that time they felt that Kamala Bissassa was not doing well enough. They removed that after only 1 term. And now they've reinstated her after 2 terms.
But remember, she was part of a coalition, team unity. You know, and we see it around the region as well, that the coalitions don't really work. So everybody moved under the team, under the umbrella of UNC. And I think that's where
yes, it's still a coalition of parties, but it's under the one umbrella. So you know, so that is a good thing for us. It's good that people are willing to change. It's only in Dominica, it seems, that people are reluctant to change a government, you know. But we need to be like that. That's the only way you're going to force progress. That's the only way you're going to see development in the country. If you're willing to change your leaders when you're not doing, you know, what they're supposed to be doing. So congratulations to the unity government there in Trinidad, and you know, I'm sure that she will do well. And it's interesting that Young was not even made the opposition the head. A lady, you know, they selected a woman. Very interesting development there.
Yes. So in terms of the what you see in terms of the elections in Trinidad, I just want to take that as we segue into Dominica. the takeaways in terms of what transpired. As you made a very important point. Rowley was there for 2 terms.
2 terms.
He gave Young a few months. They changed. They brought a new leader, but yet still the people wanted change.
Right.
And it was not something you would see in Trinidad as well. A lot of people were voting along racial lines. They were half in terms of the blacks and the Indians. But the UNC that they consider to be a Indian party got 28 seats. It was nothing about a half, and the other. And I think PNM would get maybe 15 or something in that region, and the 2 other seats came from Tobago. So I just wanted to find out what you think about that type of level of electorate understanding the process.
That's exactly right, Sparks. When you have an educated electorate, that means that people look at issues. They don't look at necessarily at people, and sometimes personalities always get into it. But when people actually understand what's going on in the country, and they look at the issues that's really in front of them, then they can make an educated decision and say, okay, well, this is working, this is not working, and this can work better. I know one of the issues that Trinidad has had for a while, seemingly since 2010, is the issue of the currency problem. They've had a lot of currency problems in Trinidad, access to the US dollar. And so I think people are looking at those type of issues. And something interesting, Doc, is that some of these countries that are actually changing government, it's not that things are that bad, you know. It's just that people want things to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, you know what, we're earning, for example, $1,000 a month, but we are thinking that it's possible to earn $1,500 a month, and these people seem to have a plan where they can put in place to have us earn $1,500 a month. Let's give them a chance. And so I think the Dominican people, sometimes we have a problem. We're stuck on color. A lot of people are stuck on color, and they have this phrase, well, my grandmother was labor, or my grandmother was workers, and I'm going to be that until I die, you know, because that's what I know. And they don't really pay attention to what's going on around them or what's going on in the country. And then you have a section of the country simply looking at self. What am I benefiting? And so I'm benefiting, so basically the rest of the country can, you know, go down the drain. But when you have what is happening around us in the Caribbean, where people are actually looking at issues, looking for a way to improve their lives and improve the country, then they make decisions based on that and not necessarily along party lines. And I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. Before we go into Dr. Fountain, it was 41 seats. The UNC won 26. The People's National Movement 13, and in Tobago, People's Party secured 2 seats.
2 seats.
Yeah. So you can see that was a serious beating.
Yes.
And it's not along the what they had before, the usual racial lines.
Right.
Very close. And
because even Raleigh, when he won in the last election, he only won 22 seats, right? So it means that, as you say, it was showing the divide in the country, you know, because roughly the population is roughly 50-50.
Right.
And people generally tend to vote, you know, Indians voted Indians and blacks voted black. But as you said, in this election, it was a voting across the lines, you know, and that's a big difference this time.
And it sent a very loud message to us as well in Dominica. And you talk about it, and we go to Dr. Fountain about the Potoism. And that is what we see happening in Dominica. We want to vote along history, what my parents did, history, I workers, or I labor, but not tackling the issues. And that is where United Workers Party is different. It's performance all the time. We talk about performance, how we can make our lives better, the best place to live, work, and to enjoy life. That's what we try to do. Doc, how do you see us in terms of what is happening around the region, the economies and whatnot? How do you see us beginning to fashion that type of expectation to the people? Where you're talking about electoral reform, the Prime Minister want to call elections, he should have left yesterday. All these things being discussed because he promised.
He promised. I mean, I remember the guy. Breaking down. You remember during the campaign in 2022, breaking down in tears and so on, that is it for him. He's sorry he has to leave. And then the question is, why is he still there? But my issue as well sometimes is with our people. And, and you would think that if people really want development, if they really want to see their country better, that they ought to be more prepared to do what is necessary. And I'm talking about be willing to change their governments, and that is what I would like to see us do more here in Dominica. It cannot be that because you always supported a party, you have to keep supporting that party. It should not be like that. It should be which government gives you the best chance of having a better future. So, for example, the United Workers' Party, we're built on a platform of job creation, looking after the young people of Dominica, creating opportunities. You need to compare that and see how the party performed in the 5 short years it had in office. You need to compare that with a government that's been there for 24 years. And instead of gaining jobs, we have been losing jobs. We just lost hundreds of jobs through Clare Harbour. Before that, business after business, we conquered over, I think, 300 businesses that have closed over the last 24 years under this government.
25 years.
25 years, yeah. So you have a net loss of businesses, and you're talking about Bello, companies that have been there for over 100 years.
Long list.
DCP, the cable car company, and don't go about the Conquest or the retailers and so on that have been forced to close under this government. So you have this history of a government that has not performed, that have lost net jobs, that have not been able to craft a plan for the future. And you have a United Workers' Party that has shown it can do it. You have a party now that is talking about how we can create jobs for the young people. Now we are going to revitalize the agriculture sector. We are going to go into the knowledge industry to make our young people get opportunities online through the internet. We are going to revamp the manufacturing sector to build our water industries. And you tell me you still want to select a government that is not performing for you. So that's what I really want to get into the heads of our people, to let them understand that development is not by chance. You don't just go to sleep and hope that your country develops. It has to be people who plan that development, people who are capable of doing that development. And in Dominica in particular, when you have a prime minister in a country where public servants have not been able to get a salary increase in years, all right, and then you take onto yourself 64,000 just for a building that you can live in, and people see nothing wrong in that. People see nothing wrong. $64,000, that's the amount the average public servant has to work for almost 5 years. Yeah. Almost 5 years to get the amount of money that you're prepared to give your prime minister. 1 month to live in a building. Why can't you live in a regular building that will probably cost $3,000 or $4,000? Why not? Why does he have to live at that level? Taking away so much from the people, and over that time you're talking about millions of dollars, that have gone. Money that probably could have built a very comfortable structure, but yet that money goes, we are told, into rent every single month for this government. So, I don't understand it sometimes with our people. I don't quite get it. And when you talk to people, it's not like their lives are getting better. It is clear in Dominica, people are becoming poorer over time. Public servants cannot get salary increases. The private sector is shrinking. There are problems for people to get loans in the bank because they probably don't have the kind of jobs. You have an NEP program that does not allow you to go to the bank and get a loan. And people still want to hang on to this government. I just don't get it.
Yesterday, somebody told me yesterday that the prime minister is so wicked. Somebody from Vilcas. He told me yesterday they went to Pi. That's where he has his house in Vegas. And the prime minister dug up the road and redo the road in front of his house.
Only in front of his house.
In front of his house. Nothing was wrong with the road. Yeah. In Pi, where he have his house in Vegas. He dug up the road and redo it. And that's some communities, farmers could access their farms. And they make a very important point, Doc. I mean, in terms of how do we get the the economy going back and forth. And the United Workers Party has done in the history. We have heard the history of Mr. James, not even before he was in the right in banana industry. And I wanted to bring that back because one of our biggest area that we have faltered in terms of empowering the rural communities. So how do you see us bringing back that kind of livelihood in the rural community? TC, we see what happened to the Wesley right now. Okay. Wesley was a very active agriculture hub and productive agriculture hub. I want you guys, let us take it and see how we can discuss that area in those areas. How do we look at like manufacturing, agriculture? What else we can bring in these areas?
Well, the numbers are there. I was looking at some numbers this evening, in preparation for coming here, and I've driven by the on the Bayfront a couple of days in a row, and I noticed we have no cruise ships there, because obviously the cruise season is over. So I took a look at St. Lucia, and between May and September, St. Lucia is going to have over 38,000 cruise visitors. Okay. Antigua is expecting between May and September to have 20,500 cruise visitors. St. Kitts is expected to have 51,470 cruise visitors.
That's in the off season, eh?
In the off season.
Yeah.
Would you guess what is projected for Dominica between May and September?
2,000?
9,650. And I'm thinking, why? Is it that the people that we've put in charge are not capable of negotiating better? When you look at you talk about the rural community. The World Bank said that 1 in 4 youth in the OECS is unemployed. 1 in 4. That's a very high number. Okay?
25%.
25% of the youth is unemployed. But then when you look at UNICEF states 40% of the youth is unemployed.
In Dominica.
In Dominica, 40%. And we know those numbers are probably higher. So we are looking at a government that's not capable of creating an atmosphere. And sometimes people say the government doesn't create jobs. Well, we know that is not their role. Their role is to provide the environment where where entrepreneurs can thrive. And you spoke about the Wesley area. Spags, I have 5.5 acres of land up in Simpa, right, and it's just sitting there. I can't do anything with it. Why? No roads. There are people asking me, hey, we'll go up there and we'll do this for you, we'll do that for you. But after you do this and that, how do I get the produce out? How do I get in and out to get the produce out? So the government has these people in place have actually just totally neglected the rural community. In the old days, we always talk about this where people from Wesley, you remember people like Spencer and, Sparrow and these guys, Garrick and these guys, they would come down to Rosa with a bag of money and just buy a Bedford truck. A Bedford truck in those days was like $35,000 EC dollars. Right. And I know because I worked on Bedford trucks during those days. My aunt I grew up with, she had a farm in Bottom Wesley, one in Bonham, one in Hunt, one in Button. And we used to cut bananas and full up of a 3-ton truck. Now people are struggling to get enough planting for hucksters, because people don't, if you go out and plant, you plant and they stay there and they're ripe. Most days you can go in the rural community and get provisions because there's just they're not going out of the country.
Wesley was bringing on average about $5 million annually, just bananas.
Just bananas.
Yeah. Just bananas.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about all the other crops coconut, copra. Copra was big.
And that's what I can understand about this government that pretends it cares so much about the people of Dominica. 70% of the population lives in the rural areas.
Community.
So it means that if you develop the agriculture product, you're taking care of 70% of your population already.
Yeah. But not only that, you take care of the young people who would normally gravitate from the country rural areas that will come to Roseau to look for
work.
And some of them get themselves in illegal activities. You know, I remember some time ago it had a killing in Foncole, and both of them were from Grand Fond. Remember that a young man. So if these young men had opportunities in Grand Fond,
they wouldn't come.
They would not come, and they would not be in those
you're solving. So all the high population that you would have in rural zone environs, you take them back to the countryside. So it's less pressure on the state to provide for them within that locality.
Yeah,
they go back down, they take their loans, they develop their homes, they do whatever. So you have the young people.
No, I was about to say, so for us as a government in waiting, our priority is in agriculture. We can give the Dominican public the assurance that we will invest heavily in agriculture. That involves repairing those feeder roads in the height of Salisbury, in Cahome, in Simpa, in Bottom Wesley, all over Dominica. You know, the hundreds of I guess probably not hundreds, but a couple 100 miles of feeder roads that were already there but have been unkept. These will be repaired. You go back into crops, and then also we're going to do agriculture in a smarter way. I mean, before we just focused on, say, bananas or coconuts, we can add value, and that to me is key.
The key. Yes.
You know, so that the young people who don't want to get their hands dirty in the soil, not everybody want to go into and be caught in the grass and so on. You want to be able to get a job, a factory job, for example, where you can use those in the factory to, our fruits, our, you're canning fruits,
like manufacturing.
You're doing manufacturing. So young people can do that. Young people can be involved now in marketing. They can go online and develop marketing campaigns, for those companies that they're working for. So there'll be opportunities for the young people. So we are thinking of agriculture in a way that it creates jobs not only for the farmers people who like to work the land, but for the young people who have gone to school. They can now use their creative efforts online. They can social media. They can create ads for social media. They can create marketing campaigns, advertising campaigns that can go out there and reach people. So with agriculture, not only are you taking care of one set, people think of agriculture and say, oh, well, you want to send people back to the soil. No, there'll be people who want to work. And we have shown in the past, when we can get Dominicans to work the land, we are able to import people to do it, if that is the case. Right? Needed, if you need to get to that point. Okay. But the important thing is that the young people will have an opportunity in an agriculture sector that is booming, because there'll be other opportunities for them.
Spin-offs from the agriculture sector.
But I talking about dirty hands. Yeah, young farmers in Salisbury. They have a lot of young farmers in Salisbury who below 30, and they're willing to dirty their hands because they'll make the money.
Right.
What we need for them right now is sustainable
markets. Right.
So recently, I was telling someone that Dominica was part of the ACP. Was part of the ACP, African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries, they sold bananas to England. The market is still there.
Yeah.
We can get
people haven't stopped eating.
Right. One of the most eaten fruit in the world now is bananas. Right. St. Lucia is still shipping. Yeah. Dominican Republic. The boat is in Dominica every fortnight. We need a cash crop. If it's not banana, it can be marijuana, because that is what is in the world right now. How do we get our young people to benefit, not just smoking and getting themselves in some illegal trouble, but ensuring that we decriminalize the marijuana and make sure and do some commercial business like the other countries with marijuana to get our young people making that benefiting from that $1 billion industry. How do we, as a party, I think we started that discussion first in 2014. Yeah. We now the former committee about it. I don't know what they're doing, but that discussion started a long time. How do you see us? Because I had to say that because you're making that very important point about how do you get young people back into agriculture. I think the markets
is a very important point, because a few weeks ago, I had a meeting for the farmers in the Southeast. We called farmers from Grand Fond to Delices. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that more than half were young people. young people that came, that and who were anxious, and their main concern was the markets. They were saying they have land available to them. They can go into agriculture, but they need support in terms of the inputs. They need support in terms of helping them to get labor to clear the land and so on. But they all talked about the importance of having markets to export, so the interest is there. And that to me is very, very encouraging, that the young people have not turned their backs on agriculture, that there are young people just waiting for the opportunities. We talked about opportunities that they could also have within the poultry industry. So not only are we looking at agriculture, but we're looking at livestock, poultry,
fishing.
Fishing. We can have young people participate in those areas.
Yes. You're listening to the Workers' Voice. In studios with me is our political leader, Dr. Thompson Fountain, and also our International Secretary, Dr. McDonald Thomas. Remember, we continue to sell tickets for the raffle tomorrow in front of the Prevost Cinema. Just $5. You can check us out there from 8 o'clock tomorrow morning in front of the Prevost Cinema, as we are raffling a Toyota Noah flat screen TV and also a tablet.
Yeah.
Only $5. Good evening and welcome to the Workers' Voice. Hello, good evening and welcome to the Workers' Voice. Yes.
The emphasis supposed to be on marijuana.
What?
The emphasis of agriculture is supposed to be on marijuana.
Okay.
Because that's a multi-million crop.
A multi-billion-dollar crop.
Yes, because Napoleon was trading that. France was trading that. Russia was trading that. France was trading that. England was trading that. And they fight for that same marijuana. That's why Napoleon died in England in jail. Because after the capture, he was fighting in England because England was supplying Russia with better herbs, and then they broke war for that.
All right. Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
We mustn't neglect that crop.
Okay. All right. There's a caller that giving full support to the marijuana industry, and it's a very huge industry around the world. And sorry,
yes, but no, I wanted to also, as we were talking about that, and they call about the young people, but interestingly enough, and I was talking to a group of young men in Grand Fort, and they were not so much concerned about the marijuana. They were saying what they were asking for help for is to go into livestock, into poultry production.
Right.
A group of 15 young men say, help us, we are going to come together. If you can help us to get what we need to do, poultry. So people continue to say, well, young people are lazy, they don't want to work. I don't believe that. I think they've not been given opportunities under this government.
Right.
Because these same young people, when they leave Dominica, they go overseas, they work free for jobs. They're the best workers.
I was going to make that point.
Our people excel overseas, but because they get the opportunity, and when they have an opportunity to make money, they put all of their efforts into it. So for us, it is very important that we as a government, that the United Workers' Party government, will make sure that we put our young people to work. And when we put them to work, that same energy that they have, they will put it into it, because they'll be making good money and will pay better wages as well. You can't be working for a whole month, and at the end of the month, you get $1,000, in today's day and age. That money, people were getting those monies in 1918. People were working for $1,000 a month in 1918, Dominica.
Right. But the
40 years later, you're still working for $1,000 a month.
The Prime Minister made a comment in 2009 about I think about it on my Facebook page. My phone died, about people, the wages people getting, the change. That 2009 campaign, or 2013. He started the NEP program where people getting about $600.
Crazy.
A month.
That's an insult. That's an insult.
And most of the people doing that work, there's our young ladies, sadly.
Doc made a very important point when he said our young people want to work. A lot of people say that our young people don't want to work. But we see what happens a lot. And if you, in every community, I know in the Wesley community for sure, a lot of our young people who want to work cannot find work. What do? They leave the country.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of the communities, when you go to the communities, they're practically empty.
They're empty, and it has an impact, because if you look at the schools now are impacted,
they hardly
because
anybody.
the schools, the numbers are shrinking in the schools,
exactly.
and so on. And very soon you have some schools that not even have a new intake of students because the young people of childbearing age
they're leaving,
are forced to migrate by this government.
I mean, you have young women that have they've got 3, 4, 5 children, and they're leaving them here, leaving them there, and they're leaving the country, and they're going and they're looking for work. Young men leaving their farms because they work hard on these farms, and then they have no markets where they can actually sell their crops. In every civilized and industrialized country, agriculture is subsidized.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to make sure that your farmers do well, you must subsidize agriculture. And the issue we have right now with this present government or group of people, or whichever you choose to call them, is that they talk a good game, but they have no idea how to implement. And we're talking about the marijuana. Remember when our president, Mr. Lennox Linton, first brought up that subject, that topic, how he was laughed at and, he was ridiculed because of that. Now they allowed 3 grams for every young people to smoke.
3 trees.
3 trees.
Yeah.
And
20,
now
28 grams.
28 grams, 3 trees. And now they are talking about some committee that they are forming. And it's all a farce because at the end of that, nothing comes out of it.
Yeah.
But I believe that we have the knowledge, and we've been talking about this for a while, how we can implement a good, sustainable marijuana industry in the country.
Yeah.
And so it's not all about talking about something. It's about having the expertise, getting the experts, bringing them in, and having people who can actually implement those programs and make it work, and where you can put people to work. Young people can actually say, you know what? I can understand what these guys are talking about, and what they're saying makes sense, and they can actually participate in what's going on.
And I was told by a couple of Rasta fellas some time ago that Dominica has the terrain to give you the best grade of marijuana in the region.
I've heard that.
I've heard that
and
over
this
and over
guy
again.
saying that. So
Yeah.
so you see that people have grown, they try the different types of marijuana. They know how beneficial it is. We just have to do what is right within the ambit of the law, and make it marketable for them, create the markets for them, get them into joint ventures with other international agencies, and get themselves going.
Exactly.
And, but I wanted to make another point, Doc, as we but time was wrong. You made we're talking about the young people and also the farmers. One of our areas that we're losing a lot of our people is that the young professionals. How do you keep them in Dominica?
Right. So for the young professionals, the key is, as a young person coming up, you want to know that if you're going to start a family, that, you have a family, you can get a mortgage, you can get a house, you can have a nice car to drive, you can take a holiday, and to do that, you need a certain basic salary. You need a certain amount of salary that you have to get. So let's start with the public servant, because government is now the largest employer. So that means the majority of young people are employed by this government. But what is the record of this government? You have persons who are teachers who have been acting for 15, 20 years. They cannot get permanent employment. You have persons who are police officers who have been constables for 25, 30 years, they have no form of promotion. So that means that this person's salary is effectively frozen at probably $2,000 a month. So imagine you started working when you were, say, 20 years as a young police officer. You go in 20 years, you're making $2,000 a month. 20 years later, you're still making $2,000 a month,
which is worth about $900.
It's not even worth the $2,000 that when you started. It's worth about $500 now. All right. So it means you're not able, as a young police officer in that type of environment, to even go to the bank and get a loan to start a family. So you can start a family. You get frustrated. You are, even as a professional, you've gone overseas. You come back. You can't get them appointed. I've met individuals who told me that they have degrees and they've been back 6, 7, 8 years and they've not been appointed. And I say that this is madness. When I went overseas to study, and came back to Dominica, I was put on 1 year probation. And after the year, I was appointed full-time as a government employee. Full-time with all the benefits, everything else that you will get in terms of your gratuity and so on. All of that was in place after 1 year. You have individuals who have gone overseas, they have come back trying to serve their country, and they have not been appointed. So it means that this government is really working against the interests of even professionals. So what we will guarantee young professionals is that a United Workers' Party government will ensure that the young people, when they come back and give their service to the country, will be appointed, but they will be appointed with opportunities to move forward. To, in other words,
mobility.
if you start at a certain salary, there'll be certain guarantees. And the way you do that is by having a system, a merit-based system, where you have a system of every year you look at individuals, you ensure that the term that you use, you evaluate them. You have an evaluation process so that people who do really well will get more than those who do not do. But everybody will be moving along, and you can build that into the system. Years ago, when I had an opportunity to advise the Prime Minister, I told him that if you're going to really keep the young people in Dominica, to keep the public service, what you need to do is to have just what I described, to ensure that the young people, that there is a system that people are graded, that they can get, they can move forward. So you can see your way, because that's very important as a young person. I can imagine the most frustrating thing, other than being unemployed, is to be employed and you don't see your way.
Underemployed.
You're employed, but you cannot, you have no way out. You cannot take a little vacation. You cannot even say, boy, I'm tired of Dominica, I want to just go St. Lucia for a weekend or something. You cannot even do that.
Hand to mouth.
Because you live in, you cannot. I mean, and that to me brings a bigger level of frustration to the people. So for young professionals, we believe that the way you're going to build this country is that you need all of the professionals on board. You need the farmers, yes, but you also need professionals, because the lifeblood of any country is its youth. You want them to be in good paying jobs. You want them to be able to attain to something that you can say, okay, today I start at this position. In 10 years, I expect to be in that position, and build around that.
You made a point about St. Lucia. We were discussing that recently. See the amount of people from St. Lucia come to Dominica for Carnival and for Creole Festival. How long? When last you heard of an excursion of Dominicans going to St. Lucia for Jazz Festival or for Carnival?
Yeah,
Dominicans don't travel like they used to.
They can't
afford it.
Yeah, so you're listening to the Workers' Voice here.
We have a few callers that
Yeah, come in. Yes, I just want to call him in. You're listening to the Workers' Voice here. Q95 Studios. With me is Dr. McDonald Thomas, our International Secretary, and our political leader, Dr. Thompson Fountain. You can call us at 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Hunter. How is Kalibishi tonight?
Quiet.
All right, okay.
I listen to the program.
Yeah.
I love the situation where we're zeroing on the young people, because sometimes I heard some people talk about farmers and farmers. A farmer 20 years ago is now almost an old man, or perhaps he doesn't have the strength again. So when we zero in on the farmers, we must look at the concept. And I like the way we talk about the young people. And agriculture is one that's good, but we must talk about irrigation. We must talk about the modern agriculture. Another question of just telling young people to go into agriculture, because their intentions are, well, they're just going back with fork on the street and so on, and they don't have a plan really about the entire thing. I'm glad you spoke about the markets. Very important. But we must, the farmers there must, those who are there alive, and the older one must be more the people who are guiding people along. They look at the farming thing, but the young people we have to encourage. He has his computer. He has his thing. He knows he might be able to make how much a year. And let us make something attractive to him and so on. Let us begin to look at the whole attractiveness. The other thing I want to talk about is unity. I want our party to be united and to ensure that we go through that thing what people fighting. And I want Dr. Thompson to look at this thing seriously. And perhaps he could either ask when you have this program, this thing they're fighting among themselves, this fighting thing can't continue. Yeah, the one there give up barricades, give up this, give up that. That one in the zone. We must now begin to look at unity.
Okay.
And the other thing I want Dr. Thomas tells talk about what effect does the tariff will have on us later when you have a time, not tonight, but when you have a time to look at the tariff and what effect will have on us. Dr. TC, Thomas, good night. Good night, Dr. TC.
Good night. Good night.
Right, Hunter, I was asked, I want the machine, the engine.
No problem. We'll work on that for you.
Okay, Mr. Hunter.
Okay.
All right, sir.
Good night.
All right, sir.
Okay, God bless. Yes. Thank you very much. He was our candidate in the 1995 elections for the People's Constituency, Mr. Hunter. Always, I worked with him for a long time in the banana industry. Always, listen and on point in some of his in his presentations. Yes, Doc. Okay, we have another call. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yeah, I'm happy that the opposition leader is there because good evening to you, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I know you don't have the mandate right now, but let's say that you're put in the place where you do have the mandate. Deal with a very fractured economy. And I'm sure if there's anyone that's capable of doing this, is you. You know, you have the track record. You've done it in Africa, and I'm pretty sure you can do it. You can do it at home. But what do you see as what would be your first set of initiatives from a like economic policy standpoint? How do you go about taking an economy which pretty much exists right now on what CBI? Outside of that, I'm not sure what. I know everyone likes to think of agriculture, but maybe there's no markets anymore for what we would depend on before, which was bananas and stuff like agriculture. But have you identified exactly how, if you were given the mandate now and you were to inherit and you had the entire playbook in front of you, what do you do? Because I feel now you're probably going to inherit more problems than you anticipate.
Thank you very much, caller. Your point taken. What would you do with the present situation, Doc?
Yes, caller. Thanks. That's an excellent question, and I feel that I am very well prepared for just this task, given my background. In fact, when I first worked in Dominica, my task was to calculate the growth in the economy. So I would visit all of the manufacturing businesses. I would visit the farmers. I would visit the construction companies. I would talk to, everybody that worked in Dominica to get a sense. So I understand in a way how this economy would probably, a lot better than a lot of people because I've had the practical experience in addition to my academic training. And in countries where I've been, it was always a question of having good policy. If you have good policy that is backed up by financing, you can create a lot of things. So in the case of Dominica, areas that we can develop very, very quickly is our water industry and our agriculture. These two can be done very rapidly. So where we have an agriculture product, and let me remind people as well, when bananas ruled in Dominica, people forget that a pound of bananas was about 25 cents, 25 cents, I think it probably the highest it reached was probably 30 cents, right? It got a much higher than that, but it was probably in that range, right? Yeah. Now a pound of plantain is $1.25, $1.50. So that gives you a sense already. And a pound of bananas now is probably in the same range, $1.50, $2. So what this tells me is that you can do so much more on a lot less in terms of being able to develop that. And that can be done very quickly. Now the markets are there because we know, for example, that especially in the French islands, those markets are ready. You have crops that can be grown in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. So what you need to do is that you want a quick infusion of money into the economy. So you chase after those cash, what we call the cash crops that can be grown in 3 months. So you have a quick turnover. In 3 months, you can have you can push out short-term crops, get monies in, and then you build on the longer term types of crops. So that is one way of doing it. And then, as I said, part of that now is to not just export your raw material, as we're doing when we export our plantains to Antigua and they ship it to Sweden and to Canada. So chips, they pay us $2 $1.25 a pound, and they charge $8 a pound for their chips. All right, we can do all of that in a relatively quick time. So to answer your question, it still goes back to what we have the best advantages, and that is in agriculture. We will develop that. The water industries, you have 2 or 3 water bottling plants. The world first can never be satisfied. 2 or 3 water bottling plants that can now penetrate the deeper markets. We would then develop relation with, big countries, whether it's the Americas or whether it is China or Japan. You can look outside of the region for your water products. So there are different things that can be done very, very quickly. But importantly would be to put resources in areas where you can have a quick return in terms of monies coming into the country. And from that now, you look now to employing, putting people in positions now where they're employed with good paying jobs. And for that, you can turn now to the knowledge industries. That's another key area where you can bring young people to work very, very, very quickly in terms of the knowledge industry. By that, I mean individuals who are able to stay here in Dominica and be able to process and invoice for a company that is offshore, or to help them, with their accounting and so on. So there are things that can be done to put people to work. So 2 things you want to do. You want to stimulate an economic activity within the country, and you want to create jobs. And if you can do those within a quick space of time, this has the ability to build on itself. Now, where do you get the monies for that? With well thought out programs and projects, you can get funding. There are funding, and especially Dominica would qualify for loans for those types of development projects. I would be prepared as the Prime Minister of this country to borrow to be able to create those types of job opportunities. Because once that is done, you have enough money now to repay that debt. So that would be one thing, because I don't expect the CBI to be for much longer. It does appear to be on its dying phase. And part of that has to do with the fact that right now the EU has even now stopped the program in Malta. So if they stop the program in Malta, it's not likely that they will tolerate our program here. So we might have issues with our program.
Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Dr. Thompson Fontaine and the others.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Don't give them your plan. No, don't say too much now for them to come on the radio and say what you're saying. Hold all your plan in secret. Don't give them your plan.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Timothy had destroyers. Timothy destroyers, and afterwards they keep on saying what we had to do. They say it on radio. Don't give them your plan. Just know when you enter, you're going to blossom. We know you know you're good. We know that.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
Indeed, thank you, caller, for that. But I think it's also important to inspire some hope in the people of Dominica. Exactly. Because I get the sense that our people are really broken right now. I get the sense that our people are really frustrated.
And a lot of people are asking, what are you guys going to do? And how are you going to do it? And you even hear such a ridiculous question, such as where you're going to get the money to do what you're going to do. Because, the Prime Minister has made it in a way that only he has access to money.
Yes.
And when he leaves, he makes it sound as though he's taking everything with him. Mm-hmm. And so nobody else will have nothing to run the country.
And at that point, you made the TC, is very important. We have to continue to educate. And something we wanted to talk to about tonight, but we'll do it some other time, is about voting practices and who can know if you vote and cannot know if you vote. Mm-hmm. And that is something that the Labour Party was pushing. If you go and vote, we'll know if you vote for us or not. And a lot of people, you hear that, no, people are scared about voting otherwise, because they will find out.
They'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you remember what the gentleman said in the Kalinago territory during the last election? Upasa or whatever. You cannot fool us. We know where you're going to vote.
Yes, right. So, and that is a serious situation. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hey, gentlemen, blessings to you all. What's up?
Blessings, my brother.
Blessings.
Nice. All right.
Is TC a country or person?
Blessings, leave me alone. Blessings, leave me alone.
Take some kickers.
Dr. Fontaine, Dr. Spans, and all the doctors in those. Blessings to you all.
Blessings.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I heard a statement by what passes for the Prime Minister. If CBI collapse now, what will you inherit? That's a very, very, very deep statement, and I think it's flying over a lot of people's heads. I mean, his wife talking about generational wealth. Interesting. And I know that they have much more than enough, and they're still taking more to build the generational wealth. And I am saying what is happening in Dominica, and I said it, I think, on SIBO, and I've said it for years. It is not coincidental. It's a systematic and deliberate, it's a calculated move to impoverish and disempower the people. And the people who is disempowered and impoverished, no independence. Everybody has to go and beg a politician for something. The brother just talked about in the days when man just come with a bag of money and buy a truck. Man need to just buy a van, Salisbury. You remember that one, Hector? Another one again.
Yeah, but about 96 vehicles came to solve 1988, four-wheel drive.
And fellas, especially single fellas, used to say, another one again. Man was independent, my brother.
Yeah.
And when you hear they talk about refrigerated boats, one will go north, one will go south, I don't know how many boats that, maybe east and west are the boats too. And up to now, nothing materializes. And nobody can do nothing without the green light of Skerrit. So you know that. So it's a lot of work, and trust me, we need a truth and reconciliation because I notice there is a lot of foolishness, and man has to get the act together. Gentlemen, blessings to you all, and thanks for the time.
Blessings.
All right, thank you.
Let's take this call again. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening,
sir.
I decided just to listen, but since you guys are talking about agriculture, then you are forcing me to call.
We rope you in.
Mr. Emmanuel.
Let me say that I was a witness to the transformation that took place in the rural community, in the lives of Dominican people who live in what we once called a country. I saw how agriculture transformed houses that were once wooden houses into concrete houses. I saw farmers being very independent because of their revenue from agricultural sale, could go to the bank and secure a loan to purchase their pickups, to carry their inputs to, and to carry their products out of the farm. And so I'm saying that to say that the rural economy, as it stands now, is void of the buoyant agricultural activity that it once had. I worked 34 years in that sector, and I could tell you the impact it had. And I'm saying that simply to say that there is still tremendous opportunity in the agricultural sector. I know that a company I once worked with, we moved away from being just a banana export company into all other crops. And we were successful in shipping 21 different crops in the region. The region is already an immediate market, north of us, but also south of us. The problem we have south is regular, reliable transportation. And that is one of the things that must be solved. And so agriculture is something that our country has to look at. With climate change, we have water, we can have the interventions of ensuring that we do irrigation. We have to begin to look at not only being producers of raw material, but product transformation, different levels, where we can transform and add value to the product. And so a pound of something that is probably $1.50, by the time you transform it into some other product, it probably is $10. And so there's opportunity. We also have to go into agriculture in a very smart way in ensuring that we try to use farming implements that will make some of the tasks much easier and at the same time more attractive to young people. We have to look at smart agriculture where we can have apps that are developed that even in your greenhouse while you're liming, you can use your app to check what is happening in your greenhouse, whether the temperature is right, whether you need to put on your water remotely. These are the things that are going to excite our young people because we are living in a tech-savvy world today, and everything is related to that. So if we can tie our agriculture with the technology, and agriculture has a whole range. Dominica now have, I think, 2 or 3 PhDs in soil science. I know one is out of state, one is here. I'm not too sure who the other one is. But we have brilliant people in Dominica that, given the opportunity to contribute free and fair without whatever beliefs they have, political or religious, they are willing to contribute. But we must open up that space, free up the space, and let everybody who thinks that they are trained, qualified, have the experience, and want to contribute, give them the avenue to contribute, work with our farmers as our foundation, make sure we organize our production, our marketing, and our transportation. And Dominica can be a much better place. Thank you and good night, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your contribution, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening, Spags.
Good evening.
Good evening, CC. Good evening, Dr. Ponte.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I know you're not pressed for that.
Yes, we are very pressed. Try to be very short.
Dr. Ponte, you know, one thing we can look into, maybe we could discuss that for the next week. I know most of countries in Caribbean and further bottling water. Something I would like to see us look into is to bulk water, but exporting water to the other countries around us in bulk. And you see, they say where we're getting money from. I have no fear about where we're getting the money from. You know, we will have to take loan soon, very soon. We will know where all our billions are. We have enough billions out there to take care, more than enough to take care of our country. Very soon they'll have to tell us where our billion is. So I have no problem as to where we're getting the money from. And Doc, do you think we'll be able to compete again on the European market as far as our banners as a concern? Or would we have to look around us to other markets? And as I said, next, I have much more to say, but next week we'll develop that further. Well, I would just like to answer if you can enlighten us on the last point, the question I asked. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a very good question, but I will tell you this, you know, just next door, you know, you can take a stone and throw it and it lands somewhere in Guadeloupe from here, or Martinique to south. Just those 2 countries is enough to absorb anything that we can grow in Dominica. You know, they made it very clear that they can absorb those quantities that we can do.
At good
So,
prices too.
you know, at very good prices. You're talking about euros, you know, when in comparison, you know, so that is something that we have to look at, and that is something that we'll definitely do in terms of how we promote the agriculture. But for me, importantly, is to get this manufacturing aspect to our agriculture so that we add value at a very early stage. We don't just export all of our raw products out of Dominica. But somebody asked a very important question that I wanted to just touch on very, very quickly. And the question is, what do we have for Dominicans living overseas who are interested in doing business in Dominica? That to me is a very important part of the solution that we are looking for. I can guarantee you that if we put out an appeal, we can get 10 Dominicans who have business ideas who want to come back to Dominica. So the way in which you attract them is that you have a very attractive package, a package of tax incentives, a package of what I call inducements, in the sense that you say, well, government, if you're lacking with a good business plan, we can guarantee you X amount of dollars up front, and we find a way to pay it back as a business. If you can employ X amount of people. So, for example, if you employ 10 people, we can give you, say, $1 million in grant and 500,000 in loan. If you can employ 20, you have a stage way of doing it. So you can, and there are people, Dominicans now, who want to come back to Dominica to contribute to the country's development. So that's a very important part of what we'll be focused on. We're already thinking in terms of how best to get these people back into Dominica, the kind of areas we would like them to focus on. If it's where they're setting up marketing companies, something to do with the online part of it. So that is a very important area that we want to do, or that we will do, because that is part of our job creation.
I think we should look at just to add to what you're saying. Look at the Taiwanese model, what they call reverse migration. And when they bring you bring back, if you had a business or some expertise, they bring you back into, and they give you the type of support that you need to and open those businesses. There's a model out there, the Taiwanese model, in terms of you have to look, if you look for reverse migration and how you support those entrepreneurs and businesses to thrive. So we have to open, Doc, as we begin to wind up. We have to open the discussion on ways and means of reviving the economy in Dominica. How do we get our pillars of production going? How do we get people involved? How do we get our young people? And as part of the United Workers' Party, how do we get people to fall in line with this kinds of ways and means of empowering them and getting Dominica going? How do we do that as a party? And we have to continue having type of discussion on a regular basis. So how we get people involved, how we excite them. And TC, how do you see, as we begin to wind up, seeing as a businessman, as an entrepreneur in Dominica as well, you know the environment. How do we get young people more excited? A lot of people want to invest. They try to, and they've been frustrated in terms of getting loans, in terms of getting startups. How do we get them to get some startups to move forward?
Well, I gave an example once of what happened to me in Japan. After the great earthquake in Japan, 2011, I think it was. Immediately when the country started recovering, one of the first things that the government did, was they went around to all the different companies to find out where they were, how they were going to move forward, and how they were going to progress based on what had just happened. And they came with a one-page document. And they asked you a few questions, and you gave them the answers. And within 3 weeks, you had money in your account based on what they thought your company needed, based on its history. So government obviously cannot do everything and shouldn't do everything, but government has to be a pillar of support for small companies or people that are trying to get into business. If you have, for example, someone Doc mentioned earlier, you have a good business plan, whether it's somebody in the diaspora or somebody locally with a good business plan, and they are able to present it, and it's a credible plan, it's a workable plan, then they should be able to get the backing to be able to execute that plan. And so if the government, we do have a small business agency in Dominica that's supposed to be helping small businesses. But what do you hear? You hear that when small businesses go towards that entity for help, the mirage of things that they asked for, at the end of the day, they cannot access the funds.
Politically aligned
to be able to access the funds. So we have to make it not necessarily easy, but we have to make it doable, so that when these people, very practical, so that when these people go to this entity, that they are actually given a fighting chance to be able to do what they need to do. Otherwise, what we're going to end up seeing is foreigners like the Chinese are going to be the only ones that's prospering in business in Dominica. Because I'll tell you, the business environment in Dominica is very, very, very tough. And if a businessman once told me that doing business in Dominica is basically to pay salaries and pay the bank. I had a friend who wanted to come back here to do business, and another friend of mine told him, if you're coming back to do business to live on, you better think twice, because you're going to have to do something else in conjunction with the business. So it's a tough business community, but as Doc was saying, there has to be instrument put in place by the government, incentives, tax breaks. You have to have a tax regimen that accommodates people both in the diaspora and locally, so that people can, if I know that if I do certain things, for example, a basic example is hybrid vehicles. I'm in the vehicle business. There is no policy on hybrid vehicles. We are a nature island, and we should be environmentally smart. So if you bring in a hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle, there should be a policy in place to give you tax breaks. Solar power.
Yeah.
Those things need special incentives to get people to bring those things in. So having good tax regimen, having good incentives for people to go into business is definitely a plus, and you get more people into business that way.
But you make a point about bringing people into business. But what about the business people who in business and they're struggling?
That's true.
How do we this small in every economy, the SMEs really run the economy. Small to medium enterprises.
Right.
How do we get the young people who have the nail tech offices, who have the year breeding and other things, bus drivers? How do we get them to continue to thrive and grow and expand?
Yeah, and again, it's this again. One of the entities you have in the US, for example, is the SBA, Small Business Association. We have that here, and they have to work with these people. Should be able to go in, get, for example, you have a young person, and I know we're running into time, but you have a young person that wants to go into a business. You get them with someone who can help them develop a good business plan, right? They need a place to rent. One of the incentives is, okay, you have a good business plan. We are going to assist you. We're going to assist you with your rent. We're going to assist you with your equipment, and we're going to get you this far. And as Doc said earlier, you put the incentives in place. You help them with the finances. You may give them a grant. You give them a grant of a certain percentage and a loan of a certain percentage, and you give them a timeline in, say, within 2 years or within a year. Most businesses don't turn a profit for 3 years or more.
Yeah.
So having known that, you give them a timeline where, okay, based on this, and this, then during that time frame, we expect you to pay this. You know what your customer base is. You know where your income is going to be, because of course you've generated a business plan, and so you give them those incentives. You give them those help, whether it be grant, whether it be loans, soft loans to at low percentage rates. Maybe defer the loans to 6 months down the road, 8 months down the road, when they actually start in business and they start generating revenue, and then they have that incentive to go into business. So that's one of the ways you can actually get these people into this kind of business.
Thank you very much. Time we
Yes.
have. We over time.
Comments.
Yeah.
Yes, but I just wanted to back up very quickly on what Dr. Tissi said, and you talked about the very difficult environment in Dominica for doing business, and part of the problem is that people simply don't have disposable income. In other words, after you meet your basic expenses, your rent and your utilities, you don't have enough money to go around. And that is a major problem we have in Dominica. In other countries where you have a major tourism, that takes off some of that problem. So, for example, a business, a restaurant, if you set up a restaurant, you don't depend so much on the local clientele, because there are tourists who come in on a regular basis and can patronize your business. You don't have that in Dominica. So the way you solve this problem is to ensure that the locals have disposable income. And that goes back to what we spoke about earlier, having a situation where people can get salary increases on a regular basis. People can have that extra money to spend, because the way your economy moves, the way the economy grows, is people's ability to spend money. It is spending. The ability for you to walk into a place and leave a $500 or leave a $300. That is how the economy picks up. So that is what, as a party, as a government, that is what we will ensure, that there are enough people working. with enough well-paying jobs that they can do that. And then you're going to find that your private sector now is expanding. People don't feel that they have to work in a government office. They go within the private sector where they have more opportunities for creativity, for doing your things, for using their intellect, for using their education. These are the kind of things that we want to encourage as a government. The possibilities are endless, Spags. One thing people should be assured by now is that a United Workers' Party government is not concerned about giving people handouts. Right. This red clinic concept should never have been introduced into Dominica. Mm-hmm. It has taken us back many, many years. It has made people dependent. It has destroyed a lot of lives. And when the history of Dominica is written, we'll point down to that period when there was a red clinic opened that caused the problems we're having now. Ours is one to give people opportunities to work, but not only to work, to get good paying jobs that will allow them to have tenure in the terms that they are sure that they have guaranteed employment. They can go to the bank, get the loans that they need, get the additional help that they need to build their lives, to build a good future in this country. That is our commitment to the people of Dominica, that we are not concerned about giving handouts. We don't believe that is the way to build a country. The way you build a country is that you create jobs, you put the policies in place, you do the right tax environment. If this government was a thinking government, for example, those high duties that you have, where people can, prices are so high and there's no relief, very high VAT, you have an income tax that is stifling people. None of that has been tackled by this government. There's no tax policy by this government. They want money, they just put a tax on a good coming in. But you're stifling growth, you're stifling development, you're keeping people in poverty. We, as a United Workers' Party, we can guarantee the people of Dominica that we understand how these things work. We have the people who can do it. We have the commitment to do it. But more importantly, we have the interests of the Dominican public at heart. We believe that our people deserve better than they now have, and we'll do our best to ensure that we can create the kind of opportunities for a better Dominica. All we ask for is that the public give us that support.
I just wanted to make one point, Doc. The United Workers' Party government will definitely be looking at those who are in need, because there will always be people in need, but we'll do so through means testing. We won't just, it won't be by the who you support or the color that you wear. There will be a genuine effort to for means testing, see who deserves the help, and those are the people that you help. So it's not like we're just going to say, okay, nobody is going to get anything. We will definitely be looking at those in need, and those people who really need the help will be provided with the help.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We have in studios with us for the past hour and a half, almost all. Yes. Dr. Thompson Fountain, our political leader, and Dr. Donald Thomas, our international secretary. Very good discussion we had for the past hour and a half on creating that enabling environment for young people, for Dominicans to work at home and stay at home, come back home, invest, and get involved in developing the country. Dominica is a beautiful country with a lot of potential, a lot of opportunities for young people, because we experienced it before. That means
Absolutely.
We can do it right. So,
and we're going to get it better. We're going to get more people to come back to Dominica and get this place hopping. Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you very much. Till next week. It's a long holidays. I just want people to take care on the road. Be safe. If you're drinking, don't drive. If you're driving, don't drink. And if you want to drink, make sure you get a designated driver, along the weekend. There's no way, no road for speeding in Dominica, so do not speed and take care along the way. Have a wonderful weekend. There's also May Day on Monday. I think there's a walk by the unions. I just want people to join if you're part of the union, just join them as they have an activity on May Day, Monday. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend as we leave with this one by Nasio Fontaine, Living in the Positive.
Yeah. living in the positive. And I know good, we conquer evil. Jah is here amidst the battle. And I know love, we overcome it. Oh, yeah. Living in the positive. Oh, children, let not your hearts be troubled. Wipe away your tears and fears. Cause I know love, we conquer evil. Oh, oh, yeah. And even through my darkest night, oh, fear not, there is on my side to protect that.